You're listening to Hollywood Inclusive on the Good Talk Podcast Network.
This week on Hollywood Inclusive, we're going to get into how the media covered the Colin Kaepernick story this week.
We're going to talk about IMDb and casting databases and whether they have the right to list your age as an actor.
Then we're going to get into the fall TV preview.
And which TV show involves genital-to-genital rubbing.
All that and more on Hollywood Inclusive.
Hi, I'm Angie Cupper from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I'm one of the voices of the entertainment industry. I'm producing a documentary called Finding Your Fairy Tale that showcases inspirational individuals who have overcome significant adversity, proving that against all odds, happily ever after is still attainable. Check us out on Facebook and support us on Kickstarter, as today is the last day of our campaign. Get ready for Hollywood Inclusive in 4, 3, 2...
Hollywood Inclusive.
Hollywood Inclusive.
Hollywood Inclusive. Hear all the voices.
Hey, I'm Kirk.
And I am Darren. Welcome to Hollywood Inclusive.
Welcome. What's up, people?
Happy... Well, do we tell people what day it is?
Happy day.
Friday to all of you listening to this, because it's Friday when this comes out, but actually more of you listen to it on Saturday from our statistics.
Oh, see, look at that,
So
Darren, all
I
about
guess
the
I
stats.
shouldn't have said anything about what day it is. My bad.
You're bad. It's all good. It's all good.
Hey, listen, so the story of the week this week is going to be Colin Kaepernick. I'm going to say that with a heavy sigh. I didn't really want to go there.
Oh, yeah, you know.
But it
you
had,
have
I mean,
to.
it's all the buzz is there, and we did a poll on Twitter, and a few of you answered that and said that was what we should talk about. So that's cool. It's Kirk has an angle on it, so I'm excited to hear that.
Okay, yeah, I guess.
But we're gonna start with the story of Frank Somerville.
It's like kind of a happy kind of story.
It's it's a point of view.
It's
I
like
mean,
Twilight Zone happy.
So Frank Somerville is he's a news anchor in the Bay Area for KTBU, I guess. Mm-hmm. And he went on Facebook this week and he shared a story where he was at a bus stop and he witnessed a white woman and then a black man approached, and he had kind of he in his Facebook post, he was confessing that he had sort of an immediate reaction of like, oh no,
this black guy was gonna do something to this poor
Basically, like,
white lady at the bus stop who
trouble?
didn't know that he even existed yet.
And then what happened was the man's little son came up and grabbed his hand, and it shifted his perspective on it and went, oh, that's not a scary person, that's a daddy, basically.
Right. And he felt really awful and began to question himself because... You want to say it, Darren? Why was this man questioning himself after he did this? There was a number of reasons, but there's one.
Absolutely. So obviously he's questioning himself because it's like, boom, oops, I'm a racist. But on top of that, he has a black daughter. So he's like, wow, here I am. A guy who, that's my family that I'm racist against, really, is what he's kind of admitting and making himself aware of. And he chose, his course of action was to go public and have a confession and essentially to take both sides of the public reaction to that.
I didn't read the comments because the comments on Facebook are like the pit of like all hell. So
I stayed away, but there was a quick survey had kind of the combination of like, good for you for being brave enough to address this. This is the kind of thing that if we don't talk about it, then we're not going to get anywhere. Followed by, other folks who were like, thing is, you're a racist. Like, why are you trying to score points here? And not only that, but like, you're the father of a black
kid. Listen, let me tell you something. Okay, look, when I initially read this, I was like, that's kind of sweet. And then I was like...
What did you think was sweet about it? You had that reaction, and I kind of had the opposite reaction, which is interesting.
I thought it was sweet that this guy actually was I don't want to say brave is maybe the wrong word to actually tell the truth about the way that he felt. And I thought that was refreshing, because I think that that's what we're missing a lot, is people actually being honest and truthful about the way that they feel. Like he was, however uncomfortable it was for him to type that thing out, and whether he was trying to score points or not. I mean, I'm sure he had to know that some people were going to be like, oh, and some people are going to be like, no, you got a black daughter. You should not be raising your black daughter when you see somebody who looks like her walk down the street.
Well, and he mentions in the story that he literally had a talk with his daughter this week about how she's going to have a more difficult life.
Mind.
Right?
Like, that blew my mind. Like so you just talked to her about this, and then you did. Listen, Darren, we have talked about white people having adoptive black kids before.
We have and we haven't. You and I have danced around the subject here and there, and I think as close as you've ever gotten is I don't know.
Listen, I know the statistics on black, on black kids being adopted. They're not as good as they should be, or that people would hope that they would be. And so I do want, young black kids to be adopted by good parents. I do sometimes side-eye people who are not black, who have a lot of black kids. It's just something that...
Who have a lot? Is it specifically like, do you figure they're in it for the money kind of thing?
I don't know what it is. Like, when I don't know. And maybe it could be that they know statistics and they're like, I'm going to do something good, and I'm going to, with all the money that I have, I'm going to help out a young black child. It's just, I just really hope that they are equipped with the knowledge that they need to raise a black child, because
almost definitely are not. There's no
right.
And but here's the because this is the part of the half conversation you and I've almost had before, right? Goes like, my wife and I sort of started to talk about this at one point.
Right.
Like, should we adopt? And far enough, we didn't really get down that road very far, but far enough that I went to a couple of adoption websites and was like looking around at how it works, and just kind of what kids are up for adoption and that kind of thing. And it is what you think it is, right? That it's not a lot of young kids, right? It's kids who need love and homes, who are older than cute, basically. Right. And it was definitely disproportionately minority, right? So the logic exercise that I had to do with myself is, okay, if we go there, what does that mean when I walk down the street? And do people think of me as this kid's dad and that sort of thing? So, I think that's about as far as we've ever gotten in the conversation.
Yeah, because listen, I told you, look, when I think about this story about this guy, what's his name again?
Frank Somerville.
When I think about Frank Somerville, and I just think about this white guy who is prejudiced and racist, and you're raising this child and you're telling her things that you should say, but that you don't necessarily live by or believe. And I'm sure we all do that in some facet of our life, but I think that this one is just it just rubbed me the wrong way after a hint of a smile that I had.
You need a little bit of like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, I think I still need to process this, and I'm sure that he loves his daughter, and I'm sure that she loves him, or I hope that they love each other, and that I just question how much can a white parent do for a black child. And listen, and that's not to say that any parent is more equipped or ill-equipped to take care of a child, but I just think that there are certain conversations that have to be had, and I feel that in this country a lot of those conversations are not had for various reasons, out of fear. And I would hope that fear is not in a parent when they're raising that child.
And I think that was part of the value of this story, is the fact that he experienced this, he's in this position, and he chose to talk about it. And he says, geez, I went to Berkeley. This guy looks like he's older.
Right.
So he looks like he's, and he talks in there about having experienced some of the civil rights era, and he should be on the enlightened side of the conversation. And
right.
He experienced it, and it troubled him that it was part of his own identity, and he chose to then talk to everybody about it. So
what do y'all think about Frank Somerville? Is it Frank Somerville?
Frank Somerville.
What do you think about him? What do you think about the situation, what he discovered about himself? Listen, I'm still trying to process this because I don't want to say something terrible about a guy who could possibly be a good father to this young black girl.
Well, and then the other side of it is, if we're honest, how many of us have these kinds of prejudices that we, didn't famously, like Jesse Jackson had the story where he was talking about walking down the street and then he realized that he was glad that the guy walking behind him was white. Right.
Right.
So it's not something that happens to nobody.
Right. And I just, it bothers me. It's happened to me before. It annoys the shit out of me. And, listen, Frank, man.
Do you think it was brave of him? Do you think it was a vain of him to bring it to a public forum?
Here's what I don't want to, like I said, brave. I don't know if that's the right word. I appreciate the honesty because that's what I feel that this country is known for, sweeping things under the rug, not actually talking about the right thing, making sure we talk about the wrong thing so that we don't discuss the right thing, and for him to actually, take the hit or to be honest, I think it was admirable, even in a freaky weird ass way.
I think it exposes the fact that, look, almost everything has two sides, and you can be right and wrong at the same time. And that's kind of what's going on here.
I appreciate your honesty, Frank. I appreciate
I hope
that.
He's listening. I love that you're talking straight to him.
Yeah, you know what? We appreciate it over here. I don't know if Darren does as much as I do, but I appreciate it. Because I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate you admitting that when you saw a black guy, you thought that he was going to rob this lady at the bus stop, and you kind of look like a terrible asshole.
Screw you for being that guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, I like to have the opportunity to say screw you by somebody who's being honest about their feelings, which brings me to our next topic, and that is Colin Kaepernick and a bunch of people who I don't think they're really being honest about what they're saying out of their mouths.
So the reason I didn't want to talk about this story, there are many reasons, and it's not just because he plays for the Niners, although that's fairly high up the list. But this, to me, we talked last week about fabricated outrage. And the thing is, this time I don't think it is fabricated outrage. I think, honest to God, he is in the arena of professional football where that's where the rednecks live.
Right.
And so, I think he genuinely evoked genuine feelings in people and whatnot. So I don't think it's fake outrage this time. But I do think...
But do you think it's dumb outrage?
It's ridiculous. And that's why it bothers me that we're talking about it, because everybody's talking about it and it's stupid.
It is very stupid. Listen, let me tell you something. I just find this to be the dumbest shit ever on so many levels, and just the commentary and the way people are approaching this is ridiculous. And let me tell you what I can't stand the most is that when I know people who I have not seen, heard from, thought of in 10, 20 years come out the woodworks and get an interview, like Jerry Rice or Tiki Mr. Family Values Barber, and and they come out the woodworks, and I feel like they just found these people because they knew they would, or they at least quoted them because they knew that they said something negative or anti to what he was doing. And it's like, well, see, look, that black person doesn't feel the way this black person feels, and it just doesn't forward the conversation. It does absolutely nothing for it. I cannot believe or consider anything that Jerry Rice ever says, because he has not realized that his hairline is gone and he should let it go and get rid of it. And if he can walk out of the house with a hairline that looks like that and has not considered shaving it bald,
I love your
I
reasoning
cannot trust his
why.
decision making and trust his reasoning for anything.
So we talked about this story and how to go at it, because we're not a politics podcast, but
right.
we are politics adjacent, and we're not going to dive straight into the racism. We're going to dive into the media coverage of it.
Yeah, and and I think that I read a couple of articles in the Undefeated, one written by Bomani Jones, which was basically just sort of a cover on what was going on with Colin Kaepernick, and basically saying that he does have the right to do this. Here's why. And if you are questioning what he's doing, are you do you really stand by what you believe or what we're all supposed to believe that America is? And then another writer, I guess maybe a couple of days later, she wrote an article that talked about the need for more diverse voices and more black writers, because it was Colin, he talked to a black writer. The black writer is the reporter, is the one who sort of broke the story, because he had most people don't realize that Colin had actually didn't stand the week before. People just didn't notice it, and then it was caught the next time, and that's when the question was raised.
Right. So this is a thing that's been going on. The story kind of broke as, oh, by the way, Colin Kaepernick didn't stand up during the national anthem, and then everybody kind of had their reactions to that.
Right.
Followed by, then there was sort of like the quote-unquote think pieces about like, well, do you actually know what the third stanza of the Star Spangled Banner has in it? It's super racist, or at least it's, opposed to people who go fight for the other side. Then we kind of have, as you say, like, well, but now let's have what the veterans' responses are to this. And so it just builds and builds and builds upon itself. But this was the side that we wanted to talk about in terms of media as it involves American identity. And that was this idea that, like, are we talking about, it's kind of why we started with the Frank Somerville story, is are we talking about the right things when we come into these conversations?
And, everybody is focusing on, like, he's not, like, there's all this stuff, like, he doesn't support our troops. Like, that, literally, first of all, like, the Star Spangled Banner and supporting our troops aren't necessarily the same thing. And then, like, he's never said anything, but that happens quite often. All he did was
not stand up. Well, and unfortunately, this is one of the problems with the world today, right? Is that, like, oh, you didn't stand up, you are a Muslim terrorist,
un-American, like all this stuff.
Why those things even go together is,
especially when the person has that right to do it. Like, you don't have to do this. So he totally has a right. And I feel that if a song or a poem or whatever you want to call it that was written during slavery and Jim Crow segregation, if a person feels that those words were not written for him as a black person, or if he feels that what he's living or going through right now don't mean anything to him, or it doesn't show him the America that he hears in that song, he has a right to say that. And I feel like,
well, I don't think he even thought that far through it, right?
Not.
His response was basically like, I don't feel like celebrating a country where shit's going down that we see on TV all the time.
Exactly, and I don't like it, and I don't want to celebrate it. And I feel, and instead of people focusing the reason why he was sitting down, everybody is focusing on him actually sitting down. So it's like all about the method, I like what he said, but I just don't. But I love the flag. But I love the anthem. I can agree with what he said, but not the anthem. It's like, what are you talking about? And then people brought up Ali, but it's like, y'all act like when Ali didn't go to Vietnam that people celebrated him. That did not happen. He did not become a national hero. People was not doing the electric slide with Ali after he didn't go to the end. He went to jail.
He became a national hero when he died, and then we were able to tell the story of how wonderful he was.
Exactly, but he was unpatriotic. He was a traitor. He was all the things that people are calling Colin right now, and it's ridiculous. And people act like they're gonna be on the wrong side of history again. And it's like, how many times does this have to happen? And instead of the media focusing on exactly what he said and saying, he's like, listen, unarmed black kids are being killed. There's state-sanctioned violence. There's racism. And instead of us focusing on the actual topic, we're talking about what he actually, what he did, which is bullshit.
This article in undefeated.com that you're talking about is written by, if I say it right, Lene O'Neill. She goes through in there and says, one of the things that we got going on is locker rooms full of black people with a bunch of white reporters.
Right.
And she talks about the story that a black reporter broke this particular story. And then she goes on to kind of examine, well, is part of the reason that we're not, that we're focusing on the what and not the why, is it about the racial makeup of the people who tell our stories? Do you think that that's some of what's going on here, that it's white reporters choosing to focus on that we're talking about his socks as opposed to, how many people died in Chicago this month?
I mean, I don't necessarily think that that's it in a sense that, they're focusing on what they know is going to get the rise out of people, because I think it's easier to say, oh, now he hates cops. That's easier to say than says, oh, well, he's questioning racism in this country. One is just easier to put in a headline. You know what I'm saying?
It's just straight up anti-intellectualism?
I think that part of it is anti-intellectualism. I think part of it is ignorance. And I think it's people who they know how to get people to come to their website, Right. But also, now here's the thing about that article. There is, the writer of the article, she sort of makes the case that, black writers are better suited to interview, black athletes or black celebrities or, blacks because they feel more comfortable. I think it was something that was sort of kind of put out there in the article in a way.
She says that. My take on it was she thought that the reporter was better at reading between the lines and maybe got more of the story than a white reporter might have gotten.
I'm all for I'm all for inclusion and diversity. I would definitely like for there, and I know a lot of freelance writers, and I'm sure there are several spaces that they would like to be in that they're either not allowed to be in because of racism or because of the demographics that make up whatever blog or magazine that they're initially writing for. So I know people do want there to be more diversity. I also don't think that just because a person is black that it makes them like the guru on all things black. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want all black people speaking for me. I can name a list of them right now of black people who I would not want speaking for me or writing for me or reporting for me or anything. So I think that even as a black person, like you have to still learn about your history. We don't know everything about our history. And like when I was born, I came out and like black history was like in my brain. No, I had to learn. I had to read. I learned and I studied more in college. I still read today. So you still want someone who's informed, and I think that a white writer or an Hispanic writer, they should want to be informed enough to be able to read between the lines, to be able to talk to at black athletes and stuff like that. Like, that's the problem. Like, that way we wouldn't see rapper Chris Brown or see a picture of Kerry Washington, but underneath it says Alfre Woodard. Like, if you had people who actually did some research and understood their subject and what they were talking about, we wouldn't have this problem.
Right. At least we're not talking about Chris Brown on the show this week.
You know what? Listen, the fact that people made me side with Chris Brown this week, and I don't forgive the world. I don't know what that little girl name is. I don't forgive anybody who made me side with Chris Brown.
Shame on you, world. That's the message coming out of the first segment today.
Yes.
Shame on you.
World. You made me side with Chris Brown this week. I will never forgive y'all.
So join this conversation with us on Twitter. What's your take on some of the questions we're raising? Is part of the way this story is being covered coming from the racial makeup in the locker room? Are we talking about the right part of this story?
Hell no. People are not talking about the right part.
We're going to tell you the correct answer right now. It's segment 2 time.
What up? What up? We back.
So, we are going to get into some law right now.
Yeah, we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about a little law and a little mixed in with a little Hollywood, I guess.
Exactly. It's law and Hollywood rarely cross, but this is one of those situations. There is a bill on Governor Brown's desk right now that's gone through Congress already, and it has to do with, depending on your perspective, fighting ageism in Hollywood.
Right.
Gabrielle Carteris, who is the president of SAG-AFTRA, Who is she? You can't just say in 2016. I know who she is, but in 2016, not everybody knows who she is. Gabrielle Carteris played Andrea on Beverly Hills 90210.
So let me just tell you. So I used to love Beverly Hills 90210.
Seriously?
I used to love Beverly Hills 90210. Loved the show. It was so good.
It's a soap opera.
Whatever. It was so good. My cousin, we would just sit down in front of the TV in my room. We would watch all of them.
I did watch it. You know what that show what I give that show credit for more than anything.
What's that?
Is breaking the season.
Oh, because it was a summer. It was a summer show.
Summer show.
That's right. It was a summer show.
The Aaron Spelling brilliant move of I'm going to make new television in the summer, and
right.
I remember I watched it. It is completely not my genre, but I watched it because it was new, right? And this was back in the day of reruns.
Right, because it'd be, now, we have year-round TV now.
Absolutely.
So, but there was a time when there was
kind
no
of the
summer
show
television.
That started it.
It was so good. But anyway, back to Gabrielle. Is it Carteris?
Carteris, Andrea. I'm just going to call her Andrea.
Andrea.
She's Andrea Das. So, first of all, nobody on that show was anywhere near their age. And she was the most egregious by far. She was playing a 16-year-old.
And she was 29, right?
Something like that.
Okay.
28 or 29. She was in her upper 20s when she played.
Which is not even old. Like, when I think about it, like 29, like I was so dumb. Like, I was not, like 29 is not old. You think about how many dumb decisions and how many times I still called my parents when I was 29. But,
right. I'm still calling my parents now.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Mommy.
that is 29 is not old.
Well,
like,
but so
at all.
We should dive into this story a little bit and sort of the background.
Right.
So what she is attempting to do, along with the union in total, is to not make it illegal. Mm-hmm. What she's trying to do is make it so that she and actors like her have the ability to remove their age from electronic casting sites and electronic listing sites like IMDb.
Right.
The theory behind this being that as an actor, it does not matter how old you are. It matters how old you look or how old you could possibly play.
Because, because I always, I have a lot of friends who are actors and they usually ask for like a range. I can play 18 to 28, right. So they're not necessarily saying that you are any of those ages. It's just what you look like you can play physically.
And if you're in the industry, that's basically proper manners, right? Is to talk about, what age range is he? And you kind of say, is it young 20s or she's kind of a mom age, so you keep it ambiguous.
Is there a reason why they are putting the age on there?
Why IMDb needs to do that?
Right.
It's just, I think, we're a database.
So
give
we
us
just
data,
right?
So this went through a trial, actually.
Right.
There was a court case with an actor, and she was...
it was in Seattle, right?
I think she moved to Seattle. Yeah, the court case was in Seattle, and that may be because IMDb is owned by Amazon, which is a Seattle company.
Okay.
But the gal who did it was a Texan, and she first attempted to sue anonymously because, and this is the other side of this, right? You don't want to be the person in Hollywood rocking the boat. If
exactly.
you get a reputation for being difficult, suddenly you can't get hired.
Right.
And I think people outside the industry don't realize the degree to which politics and
right. I mean, listen, whether it's this podcast, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, I mean,
certain amount of being careful what you say.
Exactly. There's a certain amount of tact that is, necessary when, telling somebody to fuck off.
And exactly. Unless you have enough power in town, in which case you can just straight up say it and throw something at them and not get sued.
I heard, okay, yeah. That happens though. That happens.
Oh, absolutely. So, the point of the story here, she went in and she sued, and she basically is saying, well, you've told people what my age is. And she's an Asian woman. I can't say her name because it's Huang, which both look the same to me, but one is spelled Huong and one is spelled Hoang.
So that's their way of saying he apologizes for messing up your name.
And the point of the story is she was not an established actor, and that's when it's hardest, is when you are up and coming,
right,
to be able to establish roles. And the point, I saw an interview on Fox LA with Gabrielle Carteris, and she says, basically when you're up and coming, she says she spoke to casting director friends, and she said, if they know the age, they can't get it out of their heads. That they admitted that they can't just
I can see that. That makes so much sense. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It does make sense.
Now we're looking at this gal.
She lost the case, right?
She did. She absolutely lost.
We're not talking. Now Gabrielle did not lose her case because hers is going through legislature. We're talking about Huang.
Oh, you know what? Here, this is easier. It says Junie Huang. So,
okay.
So she lost the case. She sued for $1 million. Most of it was punitive. She was attempting to say to them, I lost the case, give me some compensatory damages.
Right, because she was saying that by putting the age up there, it ruined her career and possible roles that were missed because she doesn't necessarily feel that she looks the age that, her actual age.
She's an Asian woman, and I gotta say, looking at this picture, if you told me she was 26, I would believe you. I guess I don't know any now, but
the point is listen, but a TV 26 is like 38 anyway. Right. You know what I'm saying? So
her point is, I'm 42. I'm not established. I'm not,
So if I want people to think I'm 27 until I make it, then I have the right for people to think that because I look the part.
And you, as a database of knowledge, don't necessarily have the right to, I would argue, private information. Right? I mean, I don't necessarily think anybody should be able to know my age. I think the argument that is on the opposite side is, well, these are celebrities. The celebrities are in the public sphere. In fact, on the Fox LA story, there was a quote from a Republican lawmaker who says something along the lines of well, everybody knows our age. What's your problem?
Well, yeah, but I mean, being older in politics, unless you're really old and starting out, it won't hurt you. I mean, most people,
it's absolutely. I mean,
yeah. So that's a different thing. It's like
you got to be in your 70s before it matters.
Maybe
politics.
85 sometimes.
Like the joke they always make, right? That Washington is just LA for ugly people.
I've never heard that joke. I've never heard that joke, but okay.
But the point is, you don't have to be pretty to be a senator.
Exactly, you do not.
And you do have to be pretty to be an ingenue. And the point of the story,
or to be a reporter on Fox News.
that too. Well, and I don't imagine they would want to say their ages either. So one of the points that Gabrielle Carteris says is that this is, not only an issue, but it's an issue that hits women a lot harder.
Which makes total sense because she was like, there was no way she would be able to get the job that she got on Beverly Hills 90210 as a 29-year-old.
She went in for a 16-year-old role. She auditioned for it and got it. But the point is, today she wouldn't have gotten the audition
because they would have already
they would see her age on some
in
database.
29, and they wouldn't bring her in because of the stigma that she's too old to play a 16-year-old. I feel like we hear that all the time.
She was too old to play a 16-year-old. Let's not kid ourselves, right? Everybody on that cast looked quite a bit older.
Everybody on the cast looked much older.
What was the guy's name? Steve, Ian. He had the
Ian Ziering. He was Steve.
Hairline.
Yeah,
of a 17-year-old. I don't think so.
I think only Brian Austin Green actually looked like a teenager.
Right.
I think he was, but I think he actually was a teenager. Maybe he was. I know he was the youngest.
May have been. The reason that this happens is that there are labor laws to keep minors from working the kinds of hours that you need for TV, and so this is why we cast young adults in the roles of teenagers. Or the teenagers are supporting roles on other shows. It's the reason that Dawson's Creek was filmed in North Carolina, because they could get away with having a younger cast and still have them working the kind of hours, right?
Yeah.
With looser laws on child labor at the time.
Ageism. It happens. It happens in front of the camera. We've heard about it happening, behind the camera, whether it's with women even directing or people working in comedy. I know that we've had the conversation just about like how, with in comedy, young is seen to be fresh and hot. I don't think it's so much that way in drama, but
yeah, I think drama's a little bit easier on that side, at least from what I've heard. And who knows? Because nobody ever finishes an interview and says, "Well, I liked you, but you're old." So
exactly. So nobody really asks your age as well. But again, there's so many ways to find out. You can just go on Facebook and sometimes find somebody's age.
Yeah.
So
Well, or who knows? My point is, something like ageism could be an invisible automatic filter.
Right.
Who knows what causes somebody to take another shot. And obviously any kind of discrimination could be an invisible filter that you can't really measure.
Right.
But I think ageism might be in particular even harder to detect. Like, how would you run a study or something?
I guess I don't know how. Because then you would have to know who's. If they're not getting the role or the job, then you just sort of don't know. Right. Outside of sort of polling people who are above a certain age and saying like, actresses over 40 are not being high. There are this amount of actresses over 40 working, and this percentage of writers over 40.
From women who are actors is that the really, really hard part of their career is not the over 40. It's the middle age. That you go from the hot girlfriend, right?
So are you saying like 35-ish?
Well, yeah. So in that world of like, so you can either be Jennifer Lawrence or you can be Helen Mirren, but in between.
But Jennifer Lawrence can be all things. Jennifer Lawrence can be a teenager. She can be a superhero. She can be young, a mother. Right? She can be,
she can have whatever she wants, at least for a couple more years, right? And then once you're in, quote unquote, that certain age, right? Once you're kind of in the mom age and you're in your 30s or 40s, that's where it gets to be really tough to find a role. This is they actually on the Fox LA interview, they play the Amy Schumer sketch. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, I just saw it in the article, but I actually didn't get a chance to watch it.
Oh, you should check it out. Everybody should check it out. It's a classic, like kind of one of the high points of Amy Schumer's sketch show, as far as I'm concerned. She had Tina Fey and Julia Louis-Dreyfus and one other person who's I'm forgetting who the fourth person is, and they basically welcome her to the No Longer Fuckable Club. That's the main premise of the sketch. That and the comedy does a nice job of how freeing it is to finally not have to worry about the young woman's responsibilities. But basically the idea is then you have to go away until you're old, right?
Right.
Like, what is Julia Roberts playing right now? She's the mom in Mother's Day or something like that.
I don't know. She was just in that movie with George Clooney,
she had
Money
the George
Monster.
Clooney reporter movie.
Right.
So, she's not hurting.
She's not. She continues to work. But she is an exception to, I think, what most people would say.
Girl making 20-something a movie.
Exactly.
For
she was the
when she was in that sweet spot of age.
Right.
And then suddenly she's kind of in that place where she's got enough of a reputation, she's not going to go hungry. But she probably comes back with a force in her 50s and 60s, because that's the way the industry is set up. Isn't that messed up?
Yeah, because, the majority of, when I think about the majority of roles, especially in film, like they're usually for men who are like 35 to like 45, which is the spot that we're talking about,
the exact
where
opposite.
women need to like disappear off the earth before they come back, and then they can be, like you said, Helen Mirren or Meryl Streep or whatever. That's sad. You hope that that's not true, but it's definitely believable. I'm sure it's true, but I feel like that's more so true in film than television. You know what I'm saying? I think that's more so true.
There's the difference too between the number of roles and the quality of roles.
Possibly.
Right? There was a mom and dad on Beverly Hills 90210, but it wasn't their story.
Right, but now you have like, people, you have the lead on SVU, and you have Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder, and now Pitch coming out. I think
what I think is happening a little bit? I think America is getting older, and I think baby boomers are dragging the average age up a little bit.
Possibly,
I think that,
that makes sense.
Because millennials are, thumbing away on their phones,
right?
And the average age of CBS viewership is something like 60. I could be wrong, but it's way up there compared to the average age of the country. But
they bring those ratings in.
They
on
do.
CBS. They bring them in
They're
on
still
CBS.
Used to watching TV. I go home and turn on TV, and what's a DVR kind of thing. So that's the the demo has gotten older, sort of.
But then
I'm sure decisions are still made for 18 to 49
exactly,
year olds,
but it's like, but the demo has gotten older. But CBS is not hurting, and I feel like it doesn't. Like, I'm waiting for the sort of reboot, reimagining of like Golden Girls and like an old, but in like an awful women, or like in some old folks' home. It's like, what if everybody lived in Shady Pines? I want that.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I want that dark, comedy with elderly people. I still watch Golden Girls now. It's still hilarious to this day.
Hot in Cleveland was in that world almost.
Right, it was in that world. Yeah,
aging.
I think that it'd be cool to see something in like single camera, updated a little bit more, give it like a more of a cinematic, claustrophobic feel. Make it dark.
I like it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Let me shut up. So yeah, we have that thing. Yeah.
All right, so we want to hear from you. Have you experienced ageism in your roles, whether you're an actor, a writer, a director? Is it something that you've experienced
or is it something that you worry about or think about as you continue, like on your journey to becoming, a big star, actor or a writer or a director? Like, is it something that you worry about and you think about? Let us know. All right, well, let's talk about some good stuff. We talked about ageism and Colin Kaepernick and that dad. Frank Somerville. We talked about Frank Somerville. So now we're going to talk about Black Lightning. So it looks like Greg Berlanti, who is kind of like a super producer. He produces Arrow.
Those CW superhero shows, basically.
Yes, he produces all those shows, and he is teaming up with Mara Brock-Akil, who also created Girlfriends and Being Mary Joan on BT, and her husband Salam Akil. They are teaming up to create a series about Black Lightning. Now, we already know I know nothing about comic books.
I can feel it's coming to me right now.
So I'm going to pass this over to
Did I mention
Dan.
I don't really know comic books that well? But here's what I will talk about. So the comic books world has an interesting, I don't know who Black Lightning is.
So Black Lightning is a black man who uses lightning. So that's what you have to know.
Here's the problem. DC has 19 characters who are black men who use lightning. I'm not kidding you.
I'm going to read it to you. It says, the character created by Tony Isabella and Trevor Von Eden this comic was created in 1977.
Yeah.
A high school principal and former Olympic athlete becomes a crime-fighting vigilante dedicated to cleaning the streets of Metropolis.
You bet.
Black Lightning. You gotta say that with a deep voice. Like you gotta say that with a deeper Black Lightning.
No, so here's the thing. In comic books are usually fairly progressive. In the 60s and 70s, they looked around and said, wait, all of our characters are white. And so they made an effort. There was a, the first black superhero character was a lone cowboy. That was pretty early.
Maybe I should know,
you should.
No.
But then they started in the 60s and 70s to say, well, what if we invented some comic book characters of different races?
Right.
Famously on the Super Friends back in the 60s and the 70s and early 80s. That show was on TV. That was kind of my bread and butter cartoon as a kid. And that was, for years, it was Superman, Batman, Aquaman, Robin, and Wonder Woman.
Right, yes.
So that was the 5 central, and then they either had Wendy and Marvin and Wonder Dog for the first couple years, were the goofy comic relief sidekick kids,
right?
And then eventually they had Zan and Jaina.
This sounds like the Brady Bunch now.
And everybody's white out of all those people.
Okay.
And so then what happened was, somewhere, I don't remember if it was late 70s or early 80s, but they just kind of introduced this new swath of Samurai, Apache Chief, El Dorado, and Black Vulcan. All of a sudden, we're Super Friends, and they never spoke of it. It's just, hey, 4 people of color are suddenly... wait. 4 men of color. It was still just Wonder Woman.
Okay.
and Jaina, I guess, were the 2 women. But that was kind of like TV's intro to maybe it's not always white people that are going to be in here. And I would say that 3 out of the 4 of them were pretty darn lame. Apache Chief could get bigger. El Dorado could turn invisible.
Well, listen, Black Lightning got lightning, and he coming with the thunder.
Black
and
lightning actually was. So wait. On the TV show, he was called Black Vulcan.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's meant to be the same guy or 2 different black dudes who have black in their title and use lightning. I don't know whether they're meant to be the exact same or not. But he was Superman's pal. He was totally when it was time to charge in, it was okay, Superman, Black Lantern, or Black Lightning, Green Lantern, you're the tough guys. You go do the big stuff.
Okay.
Meanwhile,
was he a principal and Olympic athlete?
Super Friends didn't get that deep into characterization. They really didn't.
Well, listen, this will be cool. I mean, Berlanti has Arrow, he has The Flash, he has Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow.
But we kind of have arrived here on some of this in terms of at least for superheroes. Cause right now you got Black Lightning now as a TV show. You've got Black Panther as a movie. Evidently, all black superheroes have to be called out as black.
Luke Cage.
And then you got Luke Cage.
Okay, you got Luke
coming
Cage.
to Netflix.
Luke Cage. That comes out in soon.
Soon. Yeah.
Very, very soon. So yeah, I mean, listen. What do you?
But then you also have to finish the thought. You have finally a Wonder Woman movie, and then Captain Marvel on the women's side.
Right.
On the Captain Marvel on the Marvel side, as far as women. So we are sort of starting to see.
Well, I mean, I think that's cool, and it's interesting because we are getting, we're definitely getting more superhero movies. They are not going anywhere, but we're also getting more superhero television. And I came across an article, I want to say on HitFix, and it was the showrunner and creator for Gotham, who started to Bruno Heller. And he said that superhero shows don't work on television, and he mentioned because of the costumes and also because TV is about real people, and if you're dealing with superheroes, you're not necessarily dealing with the real people. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I could make the same argument for comic book superheroes don't work in movies, right? You either get the art design right or you don't. This upcoming superheroes movie, the costume they have for the Flash looks ridiculous to me. It's this weird, like, red, plasticky, you know? And you know, like, famously, the Batman suit with the nipples on the chest was, like, panned forever as the
we gotta have
thing that sort of
nipples.
made
Darren.
Batman go away for decades, right, as a movie character. So, you know, sometimes they get it right, sometimes they don't. I think the first Batman, it was like, whoa, black suit.
Yeah,
yellow,
I mean,
you know?
and on television, you know, I know we have, like, you know, they have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and they had Agent Carter, and then, but
Yeah.
you also have Jessica Jones and you have Daredevil.
Well, see, I think you can't quite compare because Netflix is operating in a league of their own. They're using the lower levels of Marvel characters, and it's the characters where they don't necessarily even have a superhero name, right? Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, right? These
Right.
are people who happen to have powers and sort of save their neighborhood. So what they're doing really well on Netflix, as far as I'm concerned, is like they're building towards the Defenders. That all is in Hell's Kitchen, New York.
Okay.
Those superheroes are, you know, we've already met Luke Cage. He was in Jessica Jones.
He was in Jessica Jones. So I've seen Jessica Jones, and I've seen Jessica Jones.
Okay.
So
and then there was also 2 seasons of Daredevil. So those are all in the same universe. So like the night nurse character played by Rosanna Dawson. No,
Rosario Dawson.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry. Like she was in Daredevil, and then she showed up in Jessica Jones.
Right.
Too.
Right.
So they're doing some. You know, they're making it clear that there's the Marvel universe, and then, you know, while the big guys are destroying New York City fighting aliens, we're just here trying to look out for our own little neighborhood. And I think that's a little bit different.
Right. I like
that a
realism of the Netflix shows.
And I would say in comic books and storytelling in general, because we've been doing comic books for so long, it's like, well, how are we going to put the fate of the world? Oh, wait, I guess the fate of our entire galaxy. Oh, wait, no, the universe. Oh, wait,
Right.
All of
Right.
time and space in this universe and every multiverse will fall if Superman doesn't, you know, move this marble 3 inches or whatever. Like the stakes have to get higher and higher and higher. And like Jessica Jones was so magical that the villain, like his main thing was he was in love with her.
Right.
Damn. That's awesome. He wasn't trying to, you know,
I
break
love
down
that
a
she didn't
mountain
like have like great powers. Like she didn't have
Right.
like amazing powers. I remember I was watching it with the friend. It's like she don't do anything, and it's
Yeah.
like, to me that's sort of refreshing though.
Well, and a lot of people, comic book nerds, will tell you that that's kind of what Marvel did. They came along and they introduced smaller characters with human flaws. I
prefer smaller characters
Yeah.
with human flaws.
Well, and DC is trying to reinvent itself in that model, and they've got a lot of conflicting history to have to deal with, and they just reinvented, like they're now retelling all the origin stories and kind of trying to introduce that, and no one's ever going to ask me, but I think that's what's wrong with the Superman character right now, is that they're trying so hard to give him the dark backstory because it works for Batman and Batman makes more
Right.
money, so let's do it with Superman. And that isn't who Superman is. He's fundamentally a Boy Scout raised by a Kansan farmer and his wonderful wife.
Right.
And like,
he's like you. It's like you. He's like. Well, listen, you know, superhero talk. I am very excited about Luke Cage.
Yeah.
I know Luke Cage is one of the new shows that's coming out this fall. Technically, I think the fall TV season starts with this new TV show on MTV. I think it's on like September 5th or something, called Mary and Jane. But it's a plus symbol.
Mary plus Jane.
Mary plus Jane, and it's a weed comedy on MTV, produced by Snoop Dogg.
Nice. I gotta say, one of the shows that I'm most excited about for this fall, and all I've seen is a trailer. I haven't read anything about it. I don't know anything about it. But it's the HBO show High Maintenance.
Know nothing about it.
I don't either. What I know is it's called High Maintenance, and it's about a drug dealer.
Okay.
So it's his job to maintain everybody's high. Like, and the trailer is basically like, my life intersects a bunch of people for one reason. I hook them up, and that's
So he's the hookup. So he the weed man.
Yeah.
And it's just so it's like that's so good because that's a way you can do like a procedural or like a case a week because you get your your pothead of the week. And then I
don't know the story structure.
Right.
I mean, that's the interesting thing. As a writer, I immediately jump on that. I'm like, oh, well, how do you maintain that, right? Because there's so many of these like high concept pay cable shows,
right,
where they come in, they knock it out of the park for season 1. They have all these like cool main premise, and then somewhere in season 2, it's like, what does Dexter do with LaGuardia and some of these other guys? And
right.
they start spinning these stories that don't feel connected to the main characters.
Right.
And that immediately is what I think of something like with Jaime Nance. It's like, well, okay, so he's off selling drugs to people. Is it going to be about his interactions with them all the time? Or are you going to try to have these kind of background characters that get their own storylines? I think that's the delicate line they'll have to dance. So I'm interested to see how well
and
that
it's
gets
a drama. On HBO or comedy?
I mean, again, all I've seen is the trailer.
Right.
So I got kind of a dramedy sense from it.
Okay.
Or a dark, dry comedy.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I have a lot of shows that I'm like, excited about. There are a lot of
tell us.
There are a lot of black people on television this fall, guys. There are so many black people.
Now,
on TV.
how much does that impact your interest in a show?
I would say it does. I don't know. I don't have like a percentage.
Yeah, I expect you to say 33.6% better.
But I get happy to see black people on television, or I get happy to see just people of color on television in general. I mean, of course, I do have to be at least intrigued by the premise in some way, or the person who's on the show, whether it's a lead or whatnot. There still needs to be something to bring me there, because there are some shows that I won't watch, but we'll move on to the shows that I will watch. So here is the show I won't say that I'm most excited about, but I think that, I don't know if people who know me would be surprised, or I don't know, whatever. But let me tell you, I actually want to see Lethal Weapon, the TV show.
Interesting.
I really do, because I really do like Damon Wayans.
Sure.
And the guy who is playing the character that Mel Gibson played in the film is played by this dude who was named Clayne Crawford, who was on Rectify, which is this really, really great. You've heard me talk about and sing
I haven't seen
Rectify
it,
to the Moon
every day.
Sing Rectify to the Moon, and Clayne Crawford plays one of the supporting characters on Rectify. He has a really great role. He's super great. So I think it would be interesting to see him play, beside Damon Wayans. That should be really nice. Then there's Queen Sugar from OWN and Ava DuVernay. There's Shots Fired. There's Shots Fired from Gina Prince Bythewood and Reggie Bythewood. There's Luke Cage, as we already talked about. There's Pitch on Fox. There's a lot, but there is a show on HBO I'm actually excited. I want to see Westworld. I do want to see. It has a really good cast too, great cast. So I do want to see that. I mean, there's a lot. It's
now that's the show that people are intrigued by because they're full out like hiring porn stars, if I remember right. Or they're if it wasn't that.
No. That's the show with David Simon, the porn, the actual.
I'm talking the one about like robots in the West kind of thing.
They're hiring porn stars to do what?
Thought so, like to be background. Like, how Game of Thrones, you're walking around in brothels all the time?
Oh, I don't
like, evidently they're pushing that further.
So
I should look this up now that I'm saying it. You got me questioning myself.
All I know is that it's based on it's a sci-fi. Is it a book?
I see. I don't know that property. But it's basically meant to be like robots. From the trailers, it looks like it's a simulated Wild West world, so that you can go. Because
it's like they go to this West world to sort of like live out their fantasies, and then something happens where people are living out their fantasies. Something goes haywire, and then not everybody's messed up.
Okay, here's what I was talking about. The Westworld SAG-AFTRA contract has a sexually explicit ruling in it somehow. Extras must agree to genital touching.
Oh wow!
Can you imagine that? You're a day player. You're showing up.
Wait. So it's genitals. They don't say which genitals. They just say genitals.
And I assume you're showing up. You got to sign this thing.
Well, how much do extras get paid these days?
Westward extras were paid $600 for simulated sex acts on HBO set.
So $600 for simulated sex. How do we even? We were doing a fall movie preview. Now we are talking about $600. $600 simulated sex. Is that per day?
I would assume so, yes.
I really sound like I'm entertaining it. I'm not entertaining this, so we're going to get off the subject. I don't even know. I love that was a bit of information that you knew about Westworld, is that they're not necessarily hiring porn actors.
I thought I read something that there were different places where they had full-on hired. And I don't know if it was that show or other shows.
But if I worked in porn, I would totally go and do that, because it's like, let me go make this quick.
I don't even have to do anybody.
Exactly. I'd make this quick 600 right quick, and I got to do nothing.
Yeah.
But just dry hump. Perfect. So Darren, thank you for taking our fall TV preview into genital casting.
Well, that's what I do.
Perfect. I love it. Well, man, we had this was cool today.
It was a good day.
This was cool. This was a good day. So yeah, guys, make sure you hit us up on Twitter. I am KirkWright79.
And I am Digital Darren, which is spelled DERON for some reason.
Darren is gonna one day figure out a way to tell the story as to why he is spelling his name and pronounce.
I know why. It's I'm named after a baseball player.
Okay.
And I have met many people on the internet whose name is spelled the same as me. Every one of them is named after this same baseball player. Mm-hmm. They were all born like right around the same year as me, because he was like the major league batting champion that year.
Was he like good looking for women, or was it like a dad thing where I want to name my son? It was a dad thing. I want to name my son after Darren. Yeah.
Mom thought she was naming me after the guy on Bewitched.
Okay.
And she didn't know how to spell it.
All right. Okay. Well, listen. This has been fun tonight.
Oh, we have to tell everybody about next week. Next week, we're taking a week off.
We are taking a week off next week, and then we are coming back with guests.
The official, like the preseason is over.
And it'll be the official launch. Y'all get y'all nice little iTunes links people been asking about.
We're not going to tell you yet who we're bringing in, but we are bringing in folks who are on their way up in the industry, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, and some people who are, knocking that shit out of the park.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's going to be really great to talk to some of them.
We're excited to get folks to come join us here in our little studio and tell you about their perspectives on working in the industry. That is coming up not next week, but the week after.
That is September 16th.
September 16th. Yeah.
Look at that. Look how good I am.
Although I said at the beginning of the show, most people listen to it on Saturdays and Mondays, and so
just make sure you listen, regardless of Saturday, Monday. Just listen before the next Thursday. Listen whenever. I don't care.
The important thing is that you listen. Thanks,
Exactly.
everybody.
Talk to y'all later.
Good talk.